everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, and it's time to talk about NXT TakeOver WarGames. First and foremost, thank you to everybody who joined us over on Triple Jump for our live stream. Myself, Ben Potter of Triple Jump, and Sam Driver of Cultaholic all took part in a little predictions contest, and thank you to everybody who got involved. And by the way, I should point out, if you are unfamiliar with Triple Jump, but you are a fan of gaming content, give them a cheeky wee subscribe. Go on, it's only polite. But with that out of the way, now it is time to talk about what happened at NXT TakeOver WarGames 2019. In terms of just pure match quality, I don't think you can say that this event was right up there with the upper echelon of TakeOver events. But then again, over the past few years, NXT TakeOver has just set a ridiculously high bar for itself, and I don't think that should reflect badly on this event at all. I think that the matches were still really, really good generally, and I think that it was still a very, very enjoyable show. Maybe just not quite as good as some of those other takeovers. But again, that's a bit of an unfair comparison to try and make sometimes. But while it maybe lacked a little bit compared to other takeovers, and again, that's a really high bar, but while it may have lacked a little bit in terms of pure match quality, I think this event made up for it in terms of sheer incident. There was a massive shocking heel turn, for example, a big surprise appearance as well, and many other little incidents here and there to unpick. So let's take a look at everything that happened. On the pre-show, Mia Yim was attacked by an unknown assailant and taken away in an ambulance. William Regal later asked Rhea Ripley, what are you going to do, who are you going to replace her with on your team? And Ripley looked at Dakota Kai and said, Dakota, you're in. Now onto the only match of the pre-show, Angel Garza taking on Isaiah Swerve Scott. This was a good match for both guys to really show what they can do. Obviously two of the rising stars, I suppose, of the NXT brand. And while Isaiah Scott may have more of an indie pedigree, I suppose, thanks to promotions such as Evolve and even Lucha Underground as well, if they can be considered an indie promotion, I guess. Despite that, it looks like NXT are looking to build up maybe Angel Garza a little bit more as a big single star of the future. But despite Garza maybe being positioned as the favourite of the two in NXT, and despite Scott having maybe better matches on the independent scene, certainly in the United States anyway, despite that, both guys really gave it their all and really helped put each other over in terms of match quality in the ring. It didn't get very long, but it was an enjoyable match nonetheless. Towards the end, Garza heelishly went for a low blow. It was blocked by Isaiah Scott, but he still fell victim to Garza's finisher, and that was enough for the heel to pick up the victory. I'm a really big fan of Angel Garza. He's reminiscent to me of a young Eddie Guerrero, which is obviously a huge compliment. Eddie's one of my favorites of all time, and arguably one of the best of all time. And it's not just because of Angel Garza's, Mexican background. It's in his smarmy, heelish ways, and also the real fluidity that he has in the ring. I think he could be absolutely massive if given the right sort of push. And Isaiah Scott could be as well, but Garza's my boy. I really like the look of him. Next up, the main show and the first WarGames match of the night. This was the women's WarGames match, pitting Team Ripley, Rhea Ripley, Candice LeRae, Dakota Kai now, and Tegan Nox against Team Baszler, Shayna Baszler, the NXT Women's Champion, and her compadres, Io Shirai, Bianca Belair, and Kaylee Ray. The first two members of their respective teams in the match were Candice LeRae and Io Shirai. A really good booking decision, I think, because the pair have got incredible chemistry in the ring and had a really nice, intense back and forth start to the match, and just the rapport they've built up with each other over this past year has been really nice to see. Bianca Belair was in next for the heel team. In both of these WarGames matches, remember, the heel team won the numerical advantage on previous episodes of NXT. So Bianca Belair was in next, but the numbers advantage didn't quite take effect straight away. Candice LeRae showing great babyface fire to fight off both attackers and managed to keep herself in the match essentially, although eventually I think the numbers game did take its toll on Candice. But the odds were more than evened when Rhea Ripley was the next woman in the match. A bit of a surprise, honestly, given the fact that she was the team captain. You'd expect her to be in last or maybe first, not second. That was a bit of a strange call, but it would all make sense very, very soon. If you know what I'm talking about, you know a shocking moment's coming. Ripley brought loads of plunder into this match, going under the ring, getting steel chairs, trash cans, kendo sticks, and using them to dish out loads of punishment. And Candice also wasn't afraid of getting a weapon shot or two in. In fact, Candice was arguably the more aggressive of the two. Kenny Ray was in next for the heel team, bringing even more steel chairs into the ring, and they all ended up in like a nice pile on the canvas. Then there was a big Tower of Doom spot from the corner with Rhea Ripley on the bottom, but Bianca Belair held onto the cage at the top and hit a nice 450 onto Ripley straight after. That was a nice spot. At first it looked like she might have face planted on the steel chairs, but I think she was okay. Next up, Dakota Kai, who came out of her cage, turned around, and just attacked Tegan Nox, her tag team partner and her best friend, and this was a vicious assault, a shocking heel turn, one of the most out of the blue heel turns of 2019, maybe the most surprising one. I can't think of anything immediately off the top of my head that was quite as shocking as this. We don't know why yet, we don't know why, but I can't wait to find out her reasoning on NXT going forwards. Hopefully it's one that makes sense in terms of storyline. To build on that a little bit, I really hope this wasn't just a heel turn for heel turn's sake. I hope there was some thought put into this. My immediate guess is that maybe she's jealous of Tegan Nox because it was all built into a storyline, her return from injury and her difficulties with injuries and all that sort of stuff, which Dakota Kai has also had, but you could argue that Tegan Nox's injuries have had more attention and sympathy put on them, and you could make that a viable reason for Dakota Kai turning on her partner. In fact, she goes after Tegan Nox's knees, and Tegan Nox obviously sells this really well because it's her weak point, it's her knees. She's had trouble with those before, but Dakota is just vicious in this assault. Referees come out to try and stop her, officials come out to try and stop her, eventually Regal, who she shoves or hits or something. It's a proper effective heel turn. I just hope, as I say, that the storyline backs it up going forwards. She leaves, there's no way Nox is going to be able to compete in this match now, and when Baszler enters, it's now 4-on-2 in favour of the heel team. It's looking pretty bleak now for Rhea Ripley and Candice LeRae. In fact, Shayna brought some handcuffs with her to the ring. She tried to handcuff Rhea Ripley, but Ripley was able to fight her off before she could complete the job, and this would play into the finish of the match very nicely, which we'll get to in just a sec. This is where Ripley and Candice LeRae as well put in a really good effort in staying in the match, going wild with weapons, showing great, tremendous, intense resiliency as well, especially from Candice, man. It's great to see her cut loose and be more aggressive from time to time, as she has been in this previous feud with Io Shirai. But the heels again just had too many numbers. Shayna even got the Kirifuda clutch locked in on Ripley, and just when it looked like all was said and done, Ripley handcuffed herself to Shayna Baszler. They had a great little exchange with both wrists handcuffed together, but eventually it was Rhea Ripley who took control, nailing Shayna Baszler with like the handcuff assisted riptide through a pair of upright chairs, and that was enough to get the undermanned babyface team the big shocking victory, especially with two members of their team being out of the match for very different reasons. I really enjoyed this match. I thought it was a very, very good match indeed. Maybe the best match of the night. Your mileage may vary. I think for me, my favourite match was either this one or the other WarGames match, but if you haven't watched this show, I'd recommend it and see what you think. Next up, we get a shot of the ringside area where Imperium are standing there, Volta as well, of course, all menacing and tall and scary. I really hope they're a part or continue to be a part of NXT US going forwards, but of course with Volta as the United Kingdom champion, they're going to have to divide their time between the two brands. The next match was Pete Dunne versus Damian Priest versus Killian Dain in triple threat action, with the winner going on to face Adam Cole at Survivor Series tomorrow at the time of recording. Now, without revealing straight away who won this match, I really hope they give it time on Survivor Series, because given the men involved, it could really steal the show. It could easily be match of the night if they give it time. Please give it enough time. I'm worried they're not going to give it enough time. This was another strong match. Obviously, it lacked the WarGames-based fireworks of the previous one, but it was still a really strong example of how good a triple threat match can be when you structure it properly. What I mean by that is triple threat matches sometimes fall into the trap, or one of two traps really, either the trap of it being essentially a glorified handicap match with two guys dominating the solo man, usually two heels ganging up on a babyface for large portions of the match, which can become a bit of a drag. They sometimes also fall into the second trap, which is that basically it plays out like a chain of singles matches with one guy resting on the outside, the other two having effectively a singles match in the ring and then rotating and giving someone a rest. This match took a different formula and it was really effective because of it. The theme of this match, at least from what I could tell, seemed to be one guy on offense taking on both men simultaneously, and all three guys really had very good examples of this all the way through. There was some really innovative offense in this match and it kept it fresh throughout. It never really dragged this one. It was pretty exciting all the way through. Priest tried to take out Dunne about midway through the match, hitting him with that big Razor's Edge move onto one of the announce tables, which did not give in the slightest, but Priest got his just desserts because he was lingering around the ringside area, and Killian Dain just wiped him out with a running cannonball senton through the timekeeper's barricade, through the timekeeper's guardrail essentially, and both men spilled into the timekeeper's area. It was a really high impact and crowd popping spot, lovely crunchy stuff. Towards the end of the match there were a few nice near falls with the third guy breaking it up just in the nick of time, but Priest all on his own kicked out of the Ulster plantation. I don't want to speculate or stir up any trouble or anything, but the Ulster Plantation is also a move used by Kenny Omega, the One-Winged Angel, and no one kicks out of that. But in NXT, people do kick out of that. Was that shots fired? I don't know, it's a bit of a stretch to suggest that, isn't it? But I don't think that'll stop the internet from speculating, and I've contributed to that. I'm really sorry. Eventually, it looked like Killian Dain had the match won actually, reversing a sleeper hold attempt by Pete Dunne by just leaping in the air and dropping Pete Dunne back first with a nice senton onto the prone Damian Priest. But as Killian Dain bounced and rolled away from the move, Dunne instinctively hooked a leg and picked up the flash pinfall victory over Damian Priest. Pete Dunne goes on to face Adam Cole at Survivor Series for the NXT Championship. What a match that could be. I absolutely cannot wait. Next up, Matt Riddle versus Finn Balor. Now, I personally was expecting this match to be a bit of a sprint, maybe not given much time, but just one wrestled at 100 miles an hour all the way through. That's not what happened. In fact, Riddle and Balor started this match by doing some, I don't know if you've heard of it, maybe not, some wrestling, which was a bit strange to see. This was a gradual sort of match. They started off chain wrestling and progressed to bigger and bigger moves. Some of the early spots that really caught my eye were Matt Riddle's penalty kick, which is always loud and sickening, and Finn Balor's nice Shibata-style elevated drop kick to his seated opponent in the corner. They kicked out of each other's, not finishers, but like signature moves. Balor kicked out of the bro hammer, the big jackhammer thing. Didn't kick out at one, because Goldberg may have came down and, you know, really hurt everybody involved. And then Balor hit the inverted 1916, which again was only enough for a 2 count. Moving further towards the end of the match now, Riddle managed to hit the bro to sleep and the corkscrew moonsault, but again, Balor was able to kick out. In fact, Finn Balor came across really strong in this match, taking all of Riddle's biggest offense and just surviving everything that was thrown his way. Eventually, Balor went for the coup de grace from the top, but Riddle rolled out of the way. He managed to get the bro mission locked in, but Balor managed to roll out of that and escape it, and eventually reverse a ripcord knee attempt and hit the 1916 for the clean victory. Now, it sounds stupid to say, but this may have been the weakest match of the night on what was a very consistent night of wrestling action. So to say that it was the weakest match of the night, maybe, in my opinion, doesn't really do it justice. I still think this was really enjoyable. The whole show was from start to finish, so don't let that put you off at all. This is still well worth your time. We again went to the ringside area, and this time it was a musician in the crowd, not a wrestler. It was Denzel Curry. And if you haven't seen his cover of Rage Against the Machine's Bulls on Parade, watch it. Even if you're not a fan of hip-hop, he proper goes for it and absolutely does it justice. And if you are a fan of hip-hop, check him out as well, because he's very, very good. I'm sure he appreciates that plug there from me, Jack the Jobber. You're welcome, Denzel, mate. Take that to the bank with you, son. And finally, the main event of the night, the men's WarGame match this time. The Undisputed Era, Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish and Roderick Strong taking on Team Ciampa. Tommaso Ciampa, Dominik Dijakovic, Keith Lee, and a mystery partner. Ooh. Ciampa was the first man in, brandishing his signature crutch. And then when Roderick Strong, kind of bravely and maybe foolishly, got in the ring with Ciampa, Ciampa even threw the crutch to him and said, there you go, mate, I don't need it, you can use it. But Roderick Strong, credit to him, the balls on that man, just turned and threw it out of the cage and said, I don't need it, we're going one-on-one. They had a really nice back and forth intense opening, as the women's match did, but again, similar formula to the women's match, I guess. When Kyle O'Reilly got involved for the Undisputed Era, the numbers game began to take its toll. But the next babyface in was Dijakovic, and his strategy was just to throw people. If he saw someone in Undisputed Era colours, which were green and gold, by the way, which Sam Driver reckons was a nod to the Green Bay Packers, because they were in Chicago, but they're heels, so you can't rock Bears colours, you gotta rock the Packers, man, and that maybe would get some subtle heat. I don't know, I think Sam could be right, he could be onto something there. But anyway, Dijakovic's strategy was just to see anyone wearing green and throw them at something, throw them at other members of the Undisputed Era, throw them into the side of the cage, throw them into the ropes. He was throwing people around a lot. It was pretty scary. He's a big man, he's really large. But again, Bobby Fish came in now for the heel team, and once again they slowly were able to take control and made a very foolish move, taunting Keith Lee from the cage in his entrance cage at the top of the ramp. And Keith Lee looked really cross by this. Why would you anger that man? Again, like Dijakovic, he's pretty big guy. So when Lee made his entrance, predictably, he dominated for a little while, leapfrogging 2 members of the Era at the same time, casually, from out of his size, just a casual, massive leapfrog, taking both out with a flying crossbody as well, and just generally helping to swing the momentum back in the favour of Team Ciampa. But then Adam Cole got involved, and previously we'd seen the heels regain advantage whenever the numbers game was in their favour. Adam Cole made a strategic error here, and that's not quite what happened. Cole went down to ringside and just got loads of tables out from under the ring, and he propped one up against the barricade on the outside and slid the remaining 4, I think, into the ring, got up on the cage to join the fray, and Ciampa just shoved him out through the table on the outside. I was like, oh, Adam, oh, you silly goose. Ciampa followed him out to carry on the assault, and a lot of people on our stream were saying, whoa, does that not mean that he's lost the match because he's exited the cage? But I think the rules are, I hope so anyway, so it makes sense. I think the rules are the match doesn't properly start until all the entrants are in the ring. And remember, the babyface team still had that mystery team member to make his entrance, and what an entrance it was. So the timer ticked down, it hit 0, there was the buzz, and then nothing. No music, no pyro, obviously no pyro, no lights, nothing at all. And the Undisputed Era members looked really cocky in the ring. They were like, yeah, good, there's gonna be nobody, we're fine, we've got this wrapped up basically, we've got this in the bag. And then Kevin Owens' music hit. There was an ungodly pop for Kevin Owens by the NXT faithful, returning to NXT and just running wild. Power bombs, stunners, near falls, left, right, and center. He got up on the rope at one point and just posed for the crowd. And the pop was so loud for even just that little pose, it sounded like someone else had made their entrance. That's how popular and how over Kevin Owens is with the NXT crowd. I think it was Ben actually on our stream also noticed that he was wearing his old NXT t-shirt, some old merch there, and a nice little touch as well, showing how nice it was, I guess, for him to return to the yellow brand. I'm really excited. I wonder if he'll play into Survivor Series tomorrow, but first, let's get to the end of this match. Cole, despite going through a table, slowly recovered and worked his way back into the match, and at one point, absolutely crushed Kevin Owens with a Panama Sunrise on that middle bit, the metal strip in between the two rings. It looked really nasty. But eventually, the Era were undone by their own tactics, as anybody who, like me, is a fan of Football Manager will know. Your own tactics always turn against you. The tactic in this case was the bringing of tables into the ring, because every single member of the Era suffered a table bump in the closing stages. Dijakovic chokeslammed Roderick strong through a table, then O'Reilly was put through one by a nice frog splash from Kevin Owens from the corner, then Bobby Fish was hit with a massive spirit bomb by Keith Lee through a table, and while these three spots happened one after the other, you just sort of looked up in the top corner where on top of the cage, Ciampa and Cole were battling back and forth, and you thought, this is not going to end well for Adam Cole. So slowly and very carefully, because this was terrifying, Ciampa gained the advantage, stood up, got Cole on his back, wobbled a lot, which was terrifying, and then hit him with an ungodly, an almighty air raid crash from the top of the cage backwards into the ring, through the final table, and obviously that was enough to pin the NXT champion and win the match for Team Ciampa. And just before things all got wrapped up, we cut to the crowd where Britt Baker, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, a member of the AEW women's division, was shown in the crowd looking really concerned because obviously her boyfriend had just taken a terrifying spot from the top of the cage into the ring. But I thought it was a really interesting choice for WWE to show that and to acknowledge that Britt Baker was there. I think they may have even acknowledged her on commentary. They didn't say, here's All Elite Wrestling's Britt Baker, but it was certainly interesting. I'm intrigued by that decision. I wonder if we'll hear any more about it going forward. It's probably a lot of speculation, but I'd also guess probably nothing official. And that was it, with the babyface team celebrating to end the night. That was NXT TakeOver WarGames 2019. A really good show, a really strong show, but as I said at the beginning, maybe not quite as good as the top tier TakeOver events. But would I back this to overshadow Survivor Series? Maybe. You always have to give the advantage to TakeOver because their shows are shorter, more tight, and just generally of a higher quality. They let guys do more what they want in the ring. There's a lot more freedom with the actual wrestling. But this year, Survivor Series has a really strong card. Regardless of the slightly dodgy build-up, I think it has a strong card. So we could be in for a tremendous weekend of wrestling all around. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments section down below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do, then please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic, where you can pledge. And don't forget, of course, most importantly of all, to hit subscribe and to join us.